The information contained herein should not be used as substitute for the advice of an appropriately qualified and licensed physician or other healthcare provider. The information provided here is for information purpose only. The views and opinions expressed in the media or comments on this channel are those of the speaker or podcaster and do not necessarily reflect or represent the views and opinions held by this podcast network. This podcast is brought to you by Guerrilla Podcast Syndicate, powered by Kangaroo Fern Media Lab. Kangaroo Fern is Australia's independent video and podcast management agency with a mission to help individuals and entrepreneurs to start their own podcasts and harness the power of podcasting.
A Kangaroo Fern production.
A Guerrilla Podcast Syndicate production. Are You Okay is a podcast that talks about anything on emotional, psychological well-being. Kahit ano, basta kayang sagutin, pwede. Andito ang Are You Okay para tulungan kayo at bigyang linaw ang mga bumabagabag sa inyong mga saloobin. Are you okay is a question you can ask somebody, start a chat, and even save a life. Kasama si celebrity psychologist Camille Garcia. Powered by Guerrilla Podcast Syndicate.
Hello, All-Niners! Are you okay? It is now episode 9. So, unang-una, gaya na palagi kong sinasabi, try your best na mag-like, subscribe, and share para naman po dumami ang ating mga subscribers at the same time maging continuous ang aking pagpa-podcast. So maraming salamat po sa Guerrilla Podcast Syndicate sa opportunity ito. At the same time, I would like to thank Kangaroo Fern Media Lab dahil sa pagtulong nila sa mga katulad ko na napaka-low-tech pagdating sa ganitong klaseng pagpa-podcast at tinutulungan nila akong mapaayos at mapaganda ang aking podcast. So, to continue, kung natatandaan niyo po, last week ang pinag-usapan natin ay tungkol sa suicide. Ngayon ay itutuloy natin yung part 2 dahil marami po tayong pwedeng maging kaalaman kung ano nga ba ang nagiging dahilan, bakit ba nangyayari ito. At the same time, paano natin matutulungan yung mga tao na nakakaramdam ng ganitong klaseng pag-iisip. Remember, when we talk of suicide, it's not a mental disorder. Ito po ay yung naging epekto ng possibility of mental disorder. In fact, yung pong mga researchers na, lalo na po sa Amerika, sinasabi nga nila na about 45% ng mga suicide ay talagang meron pong mga mental health disorders or may mga mental health issues. Siguro po, kung natatandaan nyo na pag-usapan natin yung mga sinyales, at the same time yung mga kadahilanan kung bakit ang isang tao ay nagko-commit nito. Ngayon naman po ay siguro maganda rin na pag-usapan natin na pag nag-isip ng ganito ay talagang kaya natin na sabihin na hindi nila itutuloy ito. Remember, you cannot control someone's thought and action, but your words and actions have more power than you think. Kung sa tingin nyo meron kayong isang tao na nakakausap is of risk of suicide, it's better to take action and offer help that isn't nasasabihin niya na hindi naman niya kailangan. Hindi po. Mas maiging isipin natin kailangan itong tao.
Your podcast journey starts here. Take the first step on your side. Hustle with us. It starts with a great domain. Get your podcast web host with Beard and Coffee at www.beardandcoffee.com.au or find us at Facebook.
Rather than yung worry about being wrong and do nothing and then yung pala kailangan nila ng tulong. There are some ways that you can help. Una, you take the warning signs or threats of suicide seriously. If they say anything that concerns you, talk to someone you trust, such as a friend or a family member, then get help. urge them to call yung mga, siguro po may mga suicide hotlines, mga tipong ganon. And then if you feel that their life is really in danger at hindi nyo kayang talagang pigilan ito, alam ko, may 911 din dito sa Pilipinas Or kung kinakailangan madali sa barangay po, na humingi kayo ng tulong, and stay with the person throughout the encounter to help maintain a sense of calmness. Para sa ganun talagang mapipigilan nyo ang ganitong sitwasyon. Huwag nyo pong hahayaan na magkulong sa loob ng kwarto. Kaya siguraduhin nyo nandun po kayo sa loob ng kwarto. Kung sakasakaling ayaw na niyan lumabas, gumawa kayo ng paraan para sa ganun ay talagang mabuksan yung pinto ng kwarto. Try to reserve your judgment. Take care not to say anything that might seem judgmental or dismissive. Huwag niyo sasabihin, ikaw naman kasi, ganyan, yung sisisihin niyo pa. Try your best na talagang ang ine-express nyo ay yung talagang, yung sabihin na natin, gusto kitang tulungan. Hindi pong ganon. Huwag niyo sasabihin nyo na, hindi, okay ka lang. Kasi yun nga po yung, hindi nga po okay yung tao. Kaya try to reserve that particular thing, and that is judgment. Offer support if you can. Tell them you're available to talk, but know your limits. Hindi po kayo palagi yung sabihin nyo, may kakayahan para talagang mapigilan tong taong ito. If you don't think you can respond in a helpful way, don't leave them on their own. Halimbawa, samahan nyo na lang siya. Kesa yung ikaw yung natataranta, ikaw yung nagpapanik, talagang titignan lang kayo nung mag-a-attend. Okay? Find someone who can stay with them and talk. Such as yung, sabi ko nga po, balik tayo sa isang family member o isang kaibigan. Or kumisan, isang mabuting teacher, yung trusted teacher, or isang peer support person na makakatulong. Reassure them. Remind them of their value and express your opinion with the things that will improve and emphasize the importance na humihingi kayo dapat ng tulong. Dahil kasi hindi naman natin kaya palagi na makokontrol itong mga bagay na to. Next, kung talagang kayo ay nasa isang lugar na talagang exposed, lalo na kung nasa kitchen, gumawa kayo ng paraan na to remove the harmful items. If they have access, especially sa mga gamot, sa mga weapons, or other substances na they can use to attempt the suicide, mag-overdose, you have to take them away. Okay, ano nga ba talaga itong suicide na to? It is a more complex than a decision.
We are Independent Podcast Network. We are Guerrilla Podcast Syndicate. Would you like to hear your brand while supporting quality podcasts? Contact us now at advertise@guerrillapodcastsyndicate.com.
Yung mga tao po na nag-a-attempt ng suicide, they aren't always convinced na ito na lang yung option. It is more than that. They have exhausted their emotional reserves to continue pursuing yung mga iba pang option. In many ways, ito po yung tinatawag nating ultimate state ng burnout. Wala na silang kakayahan para talagang mag-isip pa or talagang sobrang suko na sila. Kaya napag-iisipan po na to. That state of burnout doesn't happen na sabihin nyo, parang bigla ka na lang. Hindi po, matagal na yan. Kumisan, it piles up sa sobrang maliliit lang na problema. Tapos patong-patong hanggang sa lumaki na siya. Ayun. So talagang, definitely, sa paglaki ng maraming naiisip na kalungkutan, failures, depression, at kung ano-ano pang problema, pag naipon-ipon po siya, yun na yung ultimate form ng burnout. It can lead to that. In order to attempt a suicide, a person has to be in that neurological state wherein they can override their own survival instincts. Parang yung pong state na yon or yung ganun tong klaseng estado is not totally unlike yung halimbawa sabihin nyo, inatake sa puso. Parang ganon. Hindi. Parang hindi ayaw nila na talagang yung sabihin nyo na magsusurvive sila. Alam nila yung na merong risk na mangyayari. A person have to reach a point where they feel na yung emotional pain at the same time, yung kung ano man yung nararamdaman nila, wala na. Ang relief na pwede nilang isipin, yun na lang. Yung gawin nila na patigilin yung kanilang buhay or kitilin ang kanilang buhay. And that same moment, they have access to the means to end their life. So, kumisan, a lot of little things na pwedeng sabihin natin, aksidente ba to? Hindi siya aksidente. Parang ina-align niya lahat ng mga nangyayari bago niya gawin ito. The very fact that someone can progress that far is, sabihin na natin, merong malaking reflection ng state ng mental health ng isang tao. So, hindi ka sabihin na natin nag-fail, or sabihin na natin yung sistema kung paano natin matulungan na isang tao naging failure. No. It requires a long period of time or even of waiting na talagang sabihin natin umabot tayo sa puntong ganito. In other words, when the time comes na in crisis, yung kumbaga ginagawa natin na talagang yung taong ito mabuhay. And then, we try to ignore yung mga intrusive thoughts, yung mga kung ano-anong pumapasok na negatibo, yung mga impulses na hindi maganda, out of despair. At the same time, it is often na talagang yung kung anumang enerhiya or yung possible energy na least energy available, ginagawa natin para sa ganoon, magkaroon tayo ng control dito. Kumisan, we're often very, very conflicted to the point na a lot of yung mga nagkaroon ng mga, sabihin na natin, mga kamag-anakan na nagkaroon ng ganitong klaseng sabihin na kapamilya or friends, hindi po talaga siya simple. Hindi po siya yung sabihin mo na yung alam nila na ganito lang yung ganun kasimple yung naiisip nitong taong to. Which is why when you say na being suicidal is such a very confusing state. Talagang gulong-gulo po ang kanilang kaisipan. Imagine na kumisan parang iniisip nila, ano ba? Parang gulong-gulo sila, ano ba? Anong gagawin ko? And then, parang yung triggering moment na napaka-impulsive. Tutuloy ko ba to? Tapos meron bang opportunity na talagang kaya ko pa ba? Alam nyo, yung ganong klaseng confusion, talagang it allows them na gustong-gusto nilang umayos. Gusto nila na parang pigilan ito. But then that back and forth na pagpigil sa sarili, pagod na sila. And it muddles out na naapektuhan ang kanilang judgment. So, we are not our thoughts. We are the people listening to them. Suicidal thoughts, parang snowball effect yan. Maliit na bola at pag gumulong-gulong siya, iniisip natin palaki ng palaki hanggang sa hindi lang siya attempt and then magko-commit ng suicide. This is also why some of us sabotage our own attempts kasi kumisan pinipigilan na natin. We choose a possible time, a possible place that will be discovered. Kung napapansin nyo, hindi po yung ibang nagsisuicide sobrang tago. It is one way also na talagang meron pa rin pagkakataon na makikita at mahahanap yung taong nag-commit nito. Even for those meticulously na planned na yung kanilang iniisip na pagkitil ng kanilang buhay, they're in a way sabotaging themselves kasi the longer we take the plan, the more we leave open the possibility na merong intervention na pwedeng gawin. So, una, we didn't want to hurt you.
Like what you hear so far? Make sure you never miss an episode by clicking on the subscribe button now. This podcast is possible by listeners like you. Thank you for your support. Now back to the show.
Ayaw nila na talaga, yun yung iniisip nila Ayaw naman nilang masaktan din kayo. Alam nila na merong malulungkot na tao. Merong personal disclosure na pag nag-attempt na suicide, there are absolutely moments na ang isipin nila yung mahal nila sa buhay, kaya nga iba, nagkakaroon pa ng mga suicide notes, tapos nagpapaalam, kung ano-ano pa po ang naiisip bago po nila gawin yun. And then, kumisan, ang iniisip nila mag-stage pa na parang aksidente yung nangyari dahil ayaw nila na talagang yung mahal nila sa buhay, isipin na they did it on purpose. They don't want to blame yung ibang tao when they stage this. So, ang nangyari sa iba, they really try their best to articulate how heavily yung matimbang sa kanilang puso. Kung papaano, kahit papaano, hindi masasaktan yung mahal ko sa buhay. But after a certain point, when you feel like you're burning alive, all you can think of is how to put that fire out as quickly as possible. Kaya nangyayari yung attempt na yon. When finally they do that attempt, kumisan, it becomes an emotional event as they are a neurological one. So, bali, ang utak at ang kaisipan ay nagtatalo. At once na nagtalo yan, kumisan dun na nag-uumpisa that confusing state wherein yung options mo umaabot na gawin itong bagay nito. Alam naman natin lalo na yung alam din ng isang taong nag-iisip nito na mahal sila na ibang tao. It doesn't mean that someone don't believe in them or nor sabihin na hindi sila mahal. It doesn't mean na yung walang nagki-care sa kanila or walang tumatanggap sa kanila. Kaya lang kasi parang ganon yung nangyayari ng kaisipan, yung pagtatalo na hindi, talagang wala. Yung feeling of worthlessness lumalakas lalo. So, they wish na yung they could be enough to keep someone na meron talagang tutulong sa kanila. Kaya nga umaabot siya na, alam nyo, may mga tao talaga na gumagawa talaga ng paraan na pinipigilan nila. Ginagawa ang lahat para mapigilan ito dahil kasi alam nilang may masasaktan. And yet, there are uncontrollable thoughts. Remember, if we truly felt that we are capable of staying before the possible attempt, they wanted to really get better. They really wanted na talagang to be strong enough to stay. But as the walls closed in, it stopped. Na they can no longer believe that they could really try to help themselves. It says nothing about how much you love them nor how much they love you. But your grief does, because the pain that you're experiencing in the absence speaks volumes of how deeply you cherish them. At kahit na sabihin nyo matagal na nangyari at nawala itong taong mahal niyo sa buhay, bumabalik at bumabalik sa inyong isipan na talagang nalulungkot kayo dahil nawala siya. And if your feelings are that powerful, the odds are good that the love between you was too mutual, cherished, and understood. That way, they can never change that I promise you this, parang ganon. Lagi niyong tatandaan kung nangyari ito, it's not really yung fault na I have to blame myself for na kaya namatay siya dahil ako yung may kasalanan kasi pinabayaan namin siya. Yun yung malaking problema kasi nagkakaroon tayo ng guilt about it. And it's not easy na talagang mawala yung nararamdaman na ganito. Dahil kasi palaging inisip natin na siguro kung nakinig lang ako, hanggang ngayon buhay pa siya. Kumisan, tatandaan natin na babalik tayo sa punto na talagang nagkaroon ng mental health issues bago nangyari itong mga bagay na to. And if someone that you really love is in trouble, they would know without question na siguro naman talagang tatawagin kayo. Dahil kasi mahal kayo Talagang gusto nila na to really seek that particular na tulong na ginawa niyo naman and yet they cannot control itong nangyaring ito. Yung sense of safety was shattered when nawala itong taong ito. And even someone who works in mental health, yung sabihin nyo, kahit ako, I might miss the signs na yung meron akong possibility na yung mismong pasyente ko or yung kliyente ko na nasabi niya pero hindi ko naisip na talagang itutuloy niya yung mga bagay na yun. Kaya it's still an ongoing process para sabihin natin na no matter how smart or how loving, how determined one can be, you can keep someone alive. Hindi po sa lahat ng pagkakataon, kaya natin na talagang magawa ng paraan para ang mga tao ay hindi gawin ito. Nagkamali ba ako? I don't know. Kung yung pong sa advice ko o sa aking tulong or sa pag-counsel ko, may nagawa akong mali. Maaaring meron akong nasabing mali. But you might turn them na parang isipin natin na na-underestimate ko yung ginawa niya, talagang ginawa niya. Our mental health system is supposed to provide a safety net that takes that pot of burner so that no matter what happens with the flame, it never gets a fever or pitch and boils over. Kumbaga sa mapipigilan natin na sumobrang umapaw yung, kung halimbawa kung yan ay isang sinaing, umapaw siya at talagang ituloy-tuloy na pangyayari. You are not responsible for that systemic failure. No matter what mistakes you did or didn't make, you were failed to because you were made to feel responsible for your loved one's life, which is much too heavy for a responsibility na para isipin nyo to carry that particular thing. Hindi naman po lahat tayo ay may kakayahan na mapigilan ang mga bagay na ito. Hindi po lahat tayo, kahit na sabihin nyo crisis professional tayo o napakagaling natin coach, ay mapipigilan na. We're just but humans. Your loved ones, the best way to know them is to accept the fact na nangyari ito. And then, bakit kaya nangyari ito? Palagi natin pinag-iisipan. Bakit ganun? Hindi maalis-alis sa akin yung pagdadalamhati. What I've learned is the fact na ito ay isang challenge and again to recommit to living a life na with meaning, to give our hearts away freely and readily, to be able to sabihin natin, makapagsalita sa inyo with much conviction, at the same time to let that life na maging sabihin na natin paraan para sabihin natin na mahal natin itong taong ito. Let it transform to something na talagang maging inspiration tayo. In every moment, we try to find that strength na itong kalakasan nito, itong katapangan nito, para mapigilan at pagsain itong ganitong klaseng gustong gawin sa buhay. Makakatulong tayo na meron tayong matutulungan na pigilan na huwag gawin itong bagay na to.
So you want to start a podcast? Or perhaps you've already started one, but you're still unclear on how you can actually make this podcasting work. No worries. That's why we're here for you. We are Guerrilla Podcast Syndicate, powered by Kangaroo Fern Media Lab. Join our network. Contact us at info@kangaroofern.com because we're stronger together.
Remember na both being isang tao na nawalan sa buhay or ikaw mismo nag-attempt ka nito, we will always remember na life is something precious. Nandito tayo sa mundong ito and whatever the reason might be, you still have the chance to do something extraordinary with this life. Yun yung nakakalimutan natin. Merong halaga ang buhay natin. Dapat nating isipin na kahit tayo ay nagdadalamhati, kung nawalan man tayo ng mahal sa buhay, let it be your compass that leads you to something na meron ka pang magagawa at matutulong na ibang tao. It will also remind you how precious your own being is. You're part of the legacy of your loved one that left behind. And every moment na you choose to live fully at magmahal ng todo-todo, you bring a beautiful part of them back to life. We have to cope with these suicidal thoughts. Remember that problems are temporary but suicide is permanent. Ulitin ko po yan. Problema, temporary. Pero ang suicide, permanente. Taking care of our life is never the right solution to any challenge na ating hinaharap. Bigyan niyo ng pagkakataon ng inyong sarili. Give time for that to be able to change yung sabihin na natin yung nararamdaman nating sakit. Pababain nyo. Kumbaga sa diba tayo yung galit natin, pinapababa natin. Kumbaga sa alak, diba gumagawa tayo ng paraan para pababain yung tama. Bakit hindi natin subukan na pababain natin yung galit, yung sakit na nararamdaman natin? Para sa ganon, you'll be able to have that yung mabawasan or mawala itong mga thoughts na nangyayari. Eliminate ourselves to access sa mga bagay-bagay na kung alam natin na iisip ito. Ilayo natin sarili natin. Huwag natin gustuhin na bumili pa tayo ng kung ano-anong mga weapons, mga gamot, or kung ano-ano. At kung sakasakali na kayo ay merong mental health issues, try your best to be compliant to your medications. Kasi sometimes yun yung problema eh. Akala nyo isang araw, magaling na ako. Hindi po. May mga pagkakataon na kinakailangan tuloy-tuloy nating inumin ng ating mga gamot at sumunod sa sinasabi ng ating mga doktor. But if you sabihin na natin you experience negative side effects, you have to talk to your doctor or you have to talk to somebody who can help you. Ito pa yung isa na talagang nakakalimutan natin. Avoid drugs and alcohol. Because trying to do something na illegal, taking substance na hindi talaga sabihin natin, makakatulong sa atin, kung ano-ano talaga may isip natin. Alcohol per se is a depressant. Maaaring sabihin nyo, hindi, nakakalimutan ko yung problema ko pag uminom ako ng alak dahil sa kalasingan nyo. Pero kinabukasan, nandun pa rin ang problema. Hindi siya nawala at lalo pa kayong nadidepress. Isang bagay kung natatandaan nyo, we were talking about optimism and hopefulness. Try your best to stay hopeful. No matter how bad, kung ano man ang sitwasyon natin ngayon. Kung kayo man ay naapektuhan ng pandemya, kung kayo man ay nawalan ng trabaho, know that there are ways of how you'll be able to deal with these issues. Maraming mga tao nag-iisip ng ganito, pero nagpapasalamat sila kasi hindi nila tinuloy yung pagpapatiwakal. There's a good chance that you're going to live through these mga thoughts, itong mga negative thoughts na to, and give yourself the time you need. And huwag niyo sasarilinin yung problema niyo. Huwag niyo sasabihin na ayoko nang bigyan ng problema yung mga magulang ko. Hindi. Kung ayaw niyo bigyan sila ng problema, try to talk it with friends. Try to talk it to someone na talagang makakaintindi sa inyo. Malaking bagay po yun. Getting help for that mga sabihin na natin mga suicidal thoughts will be able to help you. Not only parang to live your life to the fullest. If merong mga bagay na hindi natin ma-explain kung bakit natin naiisip ito, but then, kung iniisip natin na ito ay mga talagang nangyayari lang na ginagawa natin at pinaglalabanan natin ito, these feelings often sometimes become worse when there's a lack of help and support. Pero kung merong support, the primary support group, may mga kaibigan na tutulong sa inyo, mawawala yung ganyang klaseng kaisipan. There's a lot of, parang sabihin natin, epekto ng suicide sa ating mga mahal sa buhay. If forever it tolls victim's life, yung mga aftershocks na nangyayari siya. Hindi lang po yung isang taon na pagluluksa. Kung minsan talagang yung guilt, yung mga emosyon ng galit sa sarili, Dahil kasi nawala itong mahal niya sa buhay. Kung minsan nagiging pang matagalan. Kahit na sabihin nyo na yung parang ang pakiramdam nyo nag-iisa kayo, remember, there are a lot of people who can support you and help you at this time. Mayroong occasional thoughts that you wanted to escape yung life mo as part of being human. But suicidal thoughts, especially if they are serious suicidal thoughts, it needs treatment. If you're currently thinking about suicide, get help immediately. Na-prevent po siya. Lalo na po kung sabihin nyo na at risk ang isang tao, try to tell them that they really need help. Make sure to talk to someone if you're having trouble coping with the thoughts on your own. It is also important to speak with somebody, with a doctor, lalo na kung ang naiisip nyo ay depression at kung meron po mga mental health issues. Through therapy, kung meron man pong gamot na kinakailangan, nakakatulong siya. And just the same, gaya po ng sinabi ko last time, ipopost pa rin po namin dito kung ano po yung mga pwede nyong tawagang numero dito sa Pilipinas, yung makakatulong sa inyo 24/7 calls na kagaya po sa Cebu City, yung pong Tawag Paglaum Centro Bisaya na nakakatulong na hotline for suicide prevention and emotional crisis intervention. Tapos ang Hopeline po, that is yung sa Natasha Goldborn Foundation na we're in a depression and suicide prevention hotline, matutulungan yung mga tao na secret na nagsasuffer sa depression. Nahihiya po sila pero meron po kayong makakausap. And definitely our National Center for Mental Health has a 24/7 crisis hotline to assist people na meron pong mental health issues ranging from counseling to psychiatric emergencies and suicide prevention. Hanggang dito na lang po at sana maintindihan nyo, napakahalaga po ng buhay. Dahil kasi hindi lang po yan sabihin natin na we give meaning to our life. Bigay po sa atin ng Diyos yan. Maraming salamat po. Hanggang sa susunod na episode. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening. Make sure to visit our website at www.guerrillapodcastsyndicate.com where you can subscribe to the show in Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, or via RSS, so you'll never miss a show. While you're at it, if you found value in this show, rate and review this podcast and share it with your friends. You can also join the conversation with Guerrillas RV on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Please consider on making a donation to help us keep making the podcast you love. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us. A Guerrilla Podcast Syndicate production.